Hello there. Now, the Swiss health agencies are quietly withdrawing a certain medical procedure from circulation. Who'll be next? The whole health emergency narrative is coming apart at the seams, and governments around the world are trying to secretly and quietly row back on their previous actions. And now we hear that the Swiss health agencies have decided not to pursue a general use of the medical procedure in spring 2023 because the illness is circulating widely in the country and there is high immunity in the population. However, a doctor can recommend it to those over 16 who've not had a dose in the previous 6 months, in individual cases where the doctor deems it necessary, but it comes with a big caveat. The doctor then bears the risk of liability for any damage that medication causes, something that is very likely to lead to a reduction in its use. Is that the intention here? And it seems there are no plans for the at-risk groups in Switzerland, just on that individual basis I mentioned. Compare that to the initial production and dissemination by the mega metric tons far and wide with no liability, along with all those plans to make Big Pharma grotesquely wealthy via twice-yearly applications of the stuff from cradle to grave. Well, that's all unravelled, hasn't it? And the whole medical emergency narrative is beginning to collapse. We suffered, and the very few ended up with bloated bank accounts, yachts and personal jets. And part of all that is in regards to all that cloth and plastic we were forced to smother our faces and breathing with during much of that period. But experts at St George's Hospital in southwest London claim that when people stopped wearing them, there was no sudden surge in the spread of the latest variant. The trial basically monitored the position before and after mandates to wear these things was dropped. And afterwards there was no statistically significant rise in the spread once the wear them instructions were generally lifted. Now, anyone who picked up a pack of those blue elasticated things they sold in chemists and supermarkets would have read quite clearly, in plain understandable English, that these things were of no use where protection was concerned. It was a clear disclaimer by the manufacturers. But we spent untold millions on them, and they were not disposed of as hazardous waste, were they? Why not? It was clear it was all about psychology and control, nothing more. It's now obvious that these health emergencies come and go. But one thing that will stay is that governments will never ever forget how laughably easy it is to quickly gain control over the population and force their compliance by just using a bit of psychological fear nudging. Now, the UK is facing a perfect storm that could end up with houses being commandeered to put English Channel newcomers into. Why do I say that? Well, this government appears to have no intention of doing anything other than follow a WEF-style open borders programme. Remember that extra 500,000 last year? And that's without the tens of thousands of irregular visitors. These people have to live somewhere, and hotels are filling up fast. But the UK government is also scaling back on the plans to build 300,000 new homes every year, a number that wouldn't have kept up with the growing population anyway. Now, house prices are stagnating at the moment, and builders don't like trying to sell into a falling market. As they say in the finance trade, don't try to catch a falling knife. Anyway, the open borders crowd want everyone to come here and benefit from our wonderful weather or whatever, but with absolutely no clue about where they'll all be living, except for their communist dream of forcing the rich out onto the streets while the newcomers take ownership of their big houses, no doubt. And if we keep accepting people into the country at the current rate, then reallocating housing based on need, not on wealth, might soon have to become a thing. Because the latest is that the number of housing projects given planning permission in England, the area of the UK with the biggest magnet, has dropped to below 2006 levels when these records began, says The Times. And 55 local authorities have suspended their development plans. But we won't be suspending our open borders, will we? Now, one would think that more demand for housing and fewer being built would push prices up across the board. But it seems that the first-time buyer market is a bit clogged at the moment because there's not enough places to move up to. But there is also the matter of net zero. All those heat pumps, solar panels and wind turbines based on the shifting sands of government net zero policy. With one outcome being that landlords will soon only be able to offer level C efficient homes to renters. All those in the lower efficiency bands will not be able to be marketed for rent. And it looks like the mortgage market will follow that lead. Any property outside the ABC levels will be a cash-only purchase and not rentable. And I'm wondering that maybe soon any home outside of the top 3 levels will be deemed as uninhabitable, leaving people unable to offload them. So the upshot is fewer homes being built, net zero policy removing homes from the rental and mortgage market, but open borders for all. And the only answer the likes of Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, has is to demand the powers to impose rent controls, as if that would get more houses built and reduce demand. Plonker. Richard.
Climbing up on Salisbury Hill, I could see the city lights. Wind was blowing, time stood still. Eagle flew out of the night.
Now stop that, Richard. It's a different Salisbury anyway.
Oh, sorry, Jeff. Okay, I won't do it again. I'll just go back over to Mr. News. Okay, I got something uploaded over there.
So shall we start that one again? Richard.
So yes, here I am on Salisbury Hill. And I do apologise about the singing. I simply couldn't resist it. Anyway, so I read today in The Guardian that the SNP is facing its biggest crisis in 50 years. Now, I don't think that means necessarily that the independence movement is facing its biggest crisis in 50 years, because the death of the SNP could mean, well, it could be a renaissance for the independence movement. Because let's face it, the SNP has come to represent in the minds of the Scottish people the independence movement itself. Now, that party, the SNP, has been so deeply tainted by the let's say the ongoings and criminal investigations, and more to the point, their woke agenda that absolutely nobody can relate to. Let's face it. I mean, if you can relate to that, well done. Well, I won't say well done. But anyway, yeah. So does this now mean that Alex Salmond will have his day with his Alba party? Possibly not. But it does leave room for some political party and some political leader to emerge and represent the independence movement. Now, if you're pro-independence, this is very good news. If you're against the split up of the UK, it's very bad news. Wherever you stand, you've got to think slightly different about this, because a lot of people are celebrating the end of the SNP as if that is the end of the independence movement. Well, I'm sorry, but it isn't. It very much isn't. It could be the start. Anyway, I'll see you all again soon. Take care. Bye for now.